Welcome to this presentation by Facilitators Research. This research is distributed exclusively for informational and educational purposes and does not constitute financial, legal, tax, or investment advice. For such services, you may reach out to speak to one of our officers.
Conditions for listing. Section 4.1. Introduction. The placing document shall contain sufficient information to provide full disclosure of the applicant issuer's operations, financial resources and requirements, and the risks associated with the applicant issuer's business and marketplace for the purposes of a comprehensive analysis of ability of the applicant issuer to service and redeem the debt securities. It shall contain the minimum disclosure, which an investor would reasonably require in order to be in a position to make an informed assessment of the nature and state of the issuer's business, and most particularly its ability to effect agreed scheduled interest payments on debt securities and the repayment of the principal amount. Section 4.2. Listing Approval. Section 4.2.1. Listing Approval. A listing application shall be approved by a. the MSM Listings Committee, b. an employee of the MSM to whom the Executive Listing Authority has been delegated. Section 4.3. Methods of listing. Section 4.3.1. Methods of listing, one of two. All debt securities may be brought to listing by any one of the following methods. A. Offer for subscription, an offer to the public to subscribe to the issuer's debt securities. The offer can be placed directly by the issuer or through an intermediary. In the case of offers by tender, MSM shall be satisfied with regard to the fairness of the basis of allotment so that every investor who bids at the same price for the same number of debt securities receives equal treatment. B. Offer for sale, an offer to the public by the company or an intermediary of debt securities already in issue. In the case of offers by tender, MSM shall be satisfied with regard to the fairness of the basis of allotment so that every investor who bids at the same price for the same number of debt securities receives equal treatment. C. Other methods. Debt securities may also be brought to listing by. Section 4.3.1. Methods of listing, two of two. 1. The exercise of options or warrants to subscribe or purchase debt securities. 2. Such other methods as MSM may approve from time to time. Section 4.4. Applicants' qualifications for listing. Section 4.4.1. Applicants' qualifications for listing. An issuer shall be government, a government-owned enterprise, parastatal, a company or trust. Section 4.4.2. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer is a company, it shall be accordingly incorporated in its jurisdiction of incorporation. If an issuer is a trust, it shall be properly established. Evidence of existence/establishment shall be required from an issuer if it applies for listing. Section 4.4.3. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer is a trust, an issuer shall appoint a trustee to represent the holders of its debt securities listed on MSM. Section 4.4.4. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer is a company, its reported equity capital shall be at least 25% of the nominal amount of the bond, and its reporting shall be in compliance with the International Financial Reporting Standards, as applied in the listing prospectus. If the issuer is a trust, it shall have net assets of at least 25% of the nominal amount of the bond unless f. it is government, or b. it is a government-owned enterprise, or c. its shares are listed on MSM, or d. it is a special purpose vehicle formed for listing asset-backed securities. Section 4.4.5. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer is a company or trust, it shall have produced audited accounts for at least 2 full financial years applicable to it before the listing application is made, except where the issuer A is government, or B shares are listed on MSM, or C is a special purpose vehicle formed for listing asset-backed securities. Section 4.4.6. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer proposes to issue asset-backed securities, a. it shall be a single-purpose undertaking. b. it may add further assets to its pool of assets whilst its securities remain listed. c. it may list further classes of securities backed by separate pools of assets. Section 4.4.7. Applicants' qualifications for listing. If an issuer does not meet the eligibility criteria above, it is eligible for a listing of guaranteed debt securities if a. It is a company that is accordingly incorporated, b. It is 100% owned by government, or by a company that satisfies the eligibility criteria above, c. Its guarantor guarantees its obligations. It and its guarantor agree to comply with the listing rules. Section 4.5. Securities qualifications for listing. Section 4.5.1. Securities qualifications for listing. The debt security shall be freely transferable with a nominal value of at least M5000,000 or such other amount as MSM may prescribe from time to time. Section 4.5.2. Securities qualifications for listing. The debt securities shall be authorized and registered by the Registrar of Capital Markets. Section 4.5.3. Securities qualifications for listing. All debt securities to be listed shall already be held by a minimum of 10 investors. Section 4.5.4. Securities qualifications for listing. Admission to listing may be granted to debt securities where the number of holders is less than 10 provided the applicant company undertakes to increase the number of holders to 10 or more within the first year of admission, failing which the company's listing may not be renewed. Section 4.5.5. Securities qualifications for listing. All debt securities to be listed on the MSM shall be cleared and settled through the CSD or any other system approved by the MSM to perform electronic settlement of funds and script from time to time. Section 4.5.6. Securities qualifications for listing. All issuers shall register and be admitted by the CSD and comply with the CSD rules. Section 4.5.7. Securities qualifications for listing. If an issuer is a company including a government-owned, its debt securities shall comply with a. The laws of the authorities where it is incorporated, and b. Its articles of incorporation. Section 4.5.8. Securities qualifications for listing. If an issuer is issuing guaranteed debt securities under Rule 4.4.7, the guarantee shall have been properly authorized, b. Comply with the guarantor's articles of incorporation, and c. Comply with the laws of the country/authorities where the guarantor is incorporated. Section 4.5.9. Securities qualifications for listing. The issuer shall ensure that services pertaining to corporate actions such as payment of interest and capital, as well the receipt and handling of exercise notices, are provided in Lesotho by a third party that has the requisite professional and technical capabilities. Section April 5, 10. Securities qualifications for listing. The assigned party shall be a bank, a securities dealer, some other institution that is subject to supervision by the Registrar of Capital Markets. Section 4.6. Asset-backed securities. Section 4.6.1. Asset-backed securities. If the securities are backed by equity securities, a. The equity securities shall not represent minority interests and shall not confer legal or management control of the issuer of the equity securities, and b. They shall be listed on MSM. Section 4.6.2. Asset-backed securities. If securities are backed by options or conversion rights relating to equity securities, then Rule 4.7.1 applies to the securities resulting from the exercise of the option or conversion rights. Section 4.6.3. Asset-backed securities. There shall be a trustee or appropriate independent party to represent the interests of the holders of the asset-backed securities. It shall have a right of access to information relating to the assets. Section 4.7. Convertible debt securities. Section 4.7.1. Convertible debt securities. Convertible debt securities may be listed if the primary equity securities to which they relate have previously been listed on the MSM, or if they are being listed at the same time. Section 4.7.2. Convertible debt securities. If debt securities are convertible into shares that have not yet been issued, the issuance and subsequent listing of the shares shall have been accordingly authorized. Section 4.7.3. Convertible debt securities. If debt securities are convertible into shares, the terms of the issue shall provide for appropriate adjustments to the conversion terms if there is a change in the capital of the issuer of those shares. Section 4.8. Warrants and options. Section 4.8.1. Warrants and options. The securities underlying the options or warrants shall be A. Debt securities that are listed or to be listed on MSM, B. Debt securities listed or to be listed on another stock exchange, or C. Other debt security that MSM has approved in writing as acceptable. Section 4.8.2. Warrants and options. If the underlying debt securities have not yet been issued, A. Their issuance shall have been accordingly authorized, and B. Their listing shall have been accordingly approved. Section 4.8.3. Warrants and options. If options or warrants are convertible into debt securities, the terms of the issue shall provide for appropriate adjustments to the conversion terms if there is a change in those debt securities. Section 4.9. Listing prospectus. This part sets out the information that an issuer shall disclose in its listing prospectus and other requirements relating to the listing prospectus. For debt issuance programs, these rules apply to the base listing prospectus and the supplementary listing prospectus for each issue under the program. Section 4.9.1. Listing prospectus. A listing prospectus shall contain a disclaimer statement. Maseru Securities Market Proprietary Limited takes no responsibility for the contents of this document, makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness, and expressly disclaims any liability whatsoever for any loss howsoever arising from or in sole reliance upon the whole or any part of the contents of this document. The disclaimer shall be clear and appear on the front cover or inside cover of the listing prospectus. Section 4.9.2. Listing prospectus. A listing prospectus shall contain a responsibility statement. This document includes particulars given in compliance with the rules governing the listing of securities on the exchange MSM, for the purpose of giving information with regard to the issuer. The issuer accepts full responsibility for the accuracy of the information contained in this document and confirms, having made all reasonable inquiries, that to the best of its knowledge and belief there are no other facts the omission of which would make any statement herein misleading. Suitable amendments to the statement may be required if an issue is guaranteed. The exchange may allow others to make the statement, but an issuer shall seek prior consent for this. Section 4.9.3. Listing prospectus. 1 of 2. A listing prospectus shall be compiled in accordance with all relevant laws, Companies Act, 2011, Capital Markets Regulations, 2014, and the guidelines for the issuance of corporate bonds and commercial papers, and shall contain the information that investors would ordinarily expect it to contain to fully understand the product, and shall include, as a minimum, the following: instrument code or name, B. issue date, C. issue price, D. nominal value, E. international securities, identification number, ISIN, F. the date from which interest accrues, G. day and method for interest calculation methodology, H. first settlement date, 1. interest payment dates, J. coupon, K. last day to register, L. books closed period, M. redemption/maturity date, N. details of the authorized amount, O. value of total notes in issue, P. date of approval of the program, Q. date convention. Section 4.9.3. Listing prospectus. 2 of 2. R. Final amount payable on maturity if different from nominal value. S. Whether the instrument is linked to another listed instrument and the name, code, and ISIN of that instrument. T. Details of credit rating for applicant issuer, program memorandum, or debt instrument, if applicable. U. Covenants. 5. Events of default. W. Capital raising process to be followed. Section 4.9.4. Listing prospectus. A listing prospectus shall contain any additional information that MSM may require. Section 4.9.5. Listing prospectus. A listing prospectus shall be in English. A Sesotho version may be required. Section 4.9.6. Listing prospectus. A listing prospectus shall be submitted both in printed and electronic form. Section 4.10. Application procedures. This section sets out the procedures that an issuer shall follow to apply for listing of securities or listing of a debt program. An application involves determining whether an issuer is eligible for listing and whether securities are eligible for listing. MSM will use the information that an issuer supplies to make these assessments. The documents an issuer submits shall be in English. Section 4.10.1. Application procedures. 1 of 2. An issuer shall submit the following. A detailed application letter. If an issue is guaranteed, the guarantor shall also write a letter detailing terms of guarantee. B. Listing fees as provided in Appendix DC. Draft listing prospectus. D. If an issuer is not listed on MSM, a copy of I. Its articles of incorporation or equivalent, e.g. trust deed, to show that the issuer is accordingly incorporated or established, and 2. Its last published financial statements for the last 2 years except where an issue is guaranteed. E. If the issue is guaranteed by a company that is not listed on MSM, the issuer shall submit a copy of the guarantor's I, articles of incorporation or equivalent, to show that the guarantor is accordingly incorporated or established, and 2 last published financial statements for the last 2 years. Section 4.10.1. Application Procedures 2 of 2. F. If debt securities have been authorized by shareholders, then a copy of the shareholders' meeting resolution shall be submitted. G. A copy of the resolutions by the issuer's governing body, for example, its board of directors or trustees, authorizing I. the issue and allotment of the debt securities, 2. the application for listing, and 3. issuing the listing prospectus. H. If an issue is guaranteed, the issuer shall submit a copy of the resolutions by the guarantor's governing body authorizing I. the listing application, and 2. issuing of the listing prospectus. 1. If an issue is convertible into shares, a copy of the approvals authorizing the issue and listing of those shares. J. A declaration letter from the debt sponsor complying with Appendix B. K. A letter from the debt sponsor confirming that all necessary agreements are finalized and signed off by all the parties involved. Section 4.10.2. Application Procedures. An issuer may submit drafts of the application letter in A, and the authorizations and resolutions in G, H, 1, and K, to enable MSM to consider whether an issue and issuer are eligible for listing. The final resolutions, authorizations in G, H, 1, and K, may be submitted after the listing application but before listing. Section 4.10.3. Application Procedures. After MSM has considered an application, it will issue a listing eligibility letter. In this letter, it will advise an issuer whether it and its debt securities are eligible for listing. The exchange will also indicate whether it requires inclusion of additional information in the listing prospectus. The letter is valid for 3 months from the date of issue. For routine applications, the exchange aims to issue this letter 5 business days after it receives the application. Section 4.10.4. Application Procedures. An issuer shall not publish nor distribute the listing prospectus in final form until MSM has agreed that the issuer may do so in writing. An issuer may circulate draft prospectus for arranging underwriting, syndication and marketing of the offering to institutional investors. Section 4.10.5. Application Procedures. In the period from when the listing prospectus is issued to the date of listing, an issuer shall advise MSM of any material event that it would have disclosed in the listing prospectus if it had been aware of the event before the listing prospectus was finalized. Section 4.10.6. Application Procedures. An issuer shall publish a formal listing notice in English, and the notice shall comply with the model form in Appendix C. Section 4.11. Programs. This section sets out the procedures for listing securities under a program that MSM has approved. Section 4.11.1. Programs. A debt program that MSM has approved is valid for issuing debt securities for 1 year after the date of publication. Section 4.11.2. Programs. An issuer shall submit the pricing supplement for an issue under a program the 2 business days before listing is required to become effective. It shall not circulate the pricing supplement until MSM has issued a letter confirming that the issuer may go ahead. Section 4.11.3. Programs. MSM will approve the listing of all securities issued under a valid program subject to the issuer notifying the exchange of the final terms of each issue, b. confirming that the securities have been issued, and c. paying the appropriate listing fee before listing. Section 4.12. Continuing Obligations. This section sets out the obligations that the issuer shall fulfill at all times for as long as its securities remain listed on MSM. If the securities are guaranteed, then the guarantor shall also comply with the continuing obligations. Section 4.12.1. Continuing obligations. If the MSM rules require an issuer to announce certain information, then it should submit any announcement or notice to MSM in a ready-to-publish electronic copy of the document to the exchange for publication on the exchange's website. B. The announcement shall include the following disclaimer. Maseru Securities Market Proprietary Limited takes no responsibility for the contents of this announcement, makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness, and expressly disclaims any liability whatsoever for any loss howsoever arising from, or in reliance upon the whole or any part of the contents of this document. Section 4.12.2. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall comply with the listing rules in force from time to time. Section 4.12.3. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall immediately, but after consultation with the exchange, announce any information that is necessary to avoid a false market in its listed debt securities where in the view of the exchange there is, or there is likely to be a false market in its listed debt securities. Section 4.12.4. Continuing obligations. If the securities are guaranteed, the guarantor shall immediately announce any information which may have a material effect on its ability to meet the obligations under the debt securities. Section 4.12.5. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall announce as soon as possible, a. If aggregate redemptions exceed 10%, b. Any public disclosure made on another stock exchange about its debt securities. Section 4.12.6. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall notify the MSM in advance of any proposal to a. Replace a trustee for bondholders, or b. Amend the trust deed, or c. Amend the terms of convertible debt securities, unless that amendment occurs automatically in accordance with the terms of the debt securities. An issuer shall not proceed with any proposed change until MSM has advised whether it will impose conditions for the change or not. Section 4.12.7. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall notify MSM as soon as possible if a. It has repurchased and cancelled all of an issue of its listed debt securities, or b. It has redeemed all of an issue of its listed debt securities prior to the maturity date, or c. All of an issue of convertible debt securities has been fully converted. The MSM will then formally delist the debt securities. Section 4.12.8. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall notify the MSM as soon as possible if its debt securities are listed on another stock exchange. Section 4.12.9. Continuing obligations. An issuer shall provide the exchange with a copy of any circular that it sent to bondholders or to any trustee. If the circular is published on a website, then the issuer shall notify MSM when it is published on that site, and it does not have to send it a printed copy. Section April 12, 10. Continuing obligations. If an issuer is a company, it shall provide MSM with its annual accounts and any interim report when they are issued. An issuer is exempted from this requirement if another company, in which case it shall provide the guarantor's annual accounts and interim report guarantees its securities. The exchange will accept a printed or electronic copy. If the annual accounts or interim report are published on a website and the issuer notifies the exchange when they are published on the website, it does not have to send it a printed copy. Section 4.13. Authorized representative. Section 4.13.1. Authorized representative. An issuer shall appoint at least one listing sponsor and one other authorized representatives to communicate with the exchange and shall notify the exchange of any change of the sponsor or representative. Section 4.14. Other. Section 4.14.1. Other. The exchange will not allow listing of the issuer if such an issuer or its securities do not comply with these rules. Section 4.14.2. Other. At its discretion, the exchange may accept or reject a listing application, or make listing subject to additional conditions. Section 4.14.3. Other. The exchange may impose additional obligations upon an issuer or its guarantor. The exchange will allow an issuer or guarantor to make representations before imposing requirements on it that are not imposed on issuers of debt securities generally.